The 14th of October, 2022. Five friends, all in their early 20s, drove out of Pittsburgh and into the woods of rural Pennsylvania. They were filmmakers, adventurers, YouTubers. Their channel Spooklight had nearly 300,000 subscribers. Their niche, urban legends, haunted places, the stuff of nightmares. They called their latest episode The Final Lock-In. It was supposed to be their most ambitious video yet. An overnight investigation in the infamous Black Hollow Asylum. 2 cameras, no cell phones, 48 hours inside. No exits, no contact. The challenge was clear. But what happened next? No one could have predicted. 3 days later, their van was found doors unlocked, phones inside, keys still in the ignition. The group? Gone, but the camera? Still recording. To understand what happened to the Spooklight crew, we have to go back more than a century to a time when the words mental health carried fear, not empathy. And institutions like Black Hollow existed in the gray areas of medicine and morality. Black Hollow Asylum was constructed in 1912, a red brick monolith buried deep in the forests of Mill County, Pennsylvania. Built far from the public eye, it was originally intended to treat soldiers returning from World War I. They came back changed, haunted, broken, and often silent. Back then, it was called shell shock. Today, we know it as PTSD. But there were no names for it then, only institutions like Black Hollow. At first, the facility was considered modern, progressive. It had separate wards for men and women, a surgical theater, hydrotherapy chambers, and even gardens for patient labor. But good intentions decayed fast. By the early 1930s, funding was slashed. War veterans were replaced by criminals, vagrants, and society's outcasts, anyone deemed unfit by the courts or their families. Doctors became overworked. Staff left. Orderlies were hired without background checks. Treatment turned to punishment, and punishment turned into routine. Rumors began to spread by 1940. Patients were kept in darkness for days. Electroshock sessions lasted hours. Ice baths, tooth removal, and worse experiments carried out in the lowest basement level, known as Ward C. Some said it wasn't even on the official blueprint, that it was dug by hand, that no one returned once they were taken below. There were whispers of an incident in 1951. An entire wing 3rd floor east was sealed overnight. No explanation, no press. Just concrete poured over the doors, and a memo instructing staff never to speak of it again. From that point on, Black Hollow began to rot. Patients went missing. Nurses quit mid-shift. Local police received anonymous calls, screams coming from inside the walls. But every investigation hit a dead end. The few reports that exist mention incomplete logs, corrupted patient records, and one particularly disturbing entry. Subject 219, removed from therapy rotation, hearing things again, told staff he wasn't alone in his cell, said the listener was back. By 1978, it was over. The state shut Black Hollow down after a series of abuse scandals hit the newspapers. A formal audit revealed over 70 patients listed as transferred with no record of where. Several lawsuits followed, and then silence. The final blow came that same year when a night nurse named Elena Moore vanished during her shift. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle. Her car was found in the parking lot, her keys still in the ignition. Her body was never found. Since then, Black Hollow has stood in silence. Its red bricks darkened by decades of rain and rot. The windows shattered, the gates rusted shut, too dangerous to renovate, too cursed to demolish. Locals won't go near it. Children are told stories to keep them away. Teenagers dare each other to touch the front steps on Halloween night. But no one stays long. Everyone who enters feels watched. Over the years, urban explorers have tried. Ghost hunters, thrill-seeking vloggers. Most leave with grainy night vision footage and shaky voices. One crew reported hearing someone breathing through a locked closet door even though the building had no power. Another claimed to hear a voice repeating their names from an empty corridor. But they all left. Every one of them. No one had ever spent 2 nights inside. No one had dared to challenge the story. Until Spooklight. The Spooklight crew wasn't just a group of friends with cameras. They were a tight unit, 5 different personalities bound together by a fascination with the unexplained. Together, they had turned fear into entertainment, and on the surface they looked fearless. But fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it records quietly. Sometimes it stares into the lens. Tyler was the heartbeat of the channel, the loud one, the daredevil. He had a natural talent for storytelling and a voice that could carry through any haunted corridor. He treated every video like a challenge not just to his viewers, but to the places themselves. If there was something hidden in the dark, Tyler wanted to confront it face to face. Lena, on the other hand, was the brain, a former history major who spent nights digging through archives and forums, unearthing rumors, blueprints, and old news clippings. Every location they investigated, she knew the names, dates, and tragedies by heart. She wasn't scared of ghosts. She was scared of getting the facts wrong. Derek was the skeptic, the one who rolled his eyes when things went bump in the night. But his job was crucial. He managed their sound equipment and often debunked noises caught on tape. Pipes groaning, wind. He believed there was always a rational explanation until there wasn't. Sasha was the sensitive one, not in a fragile way, but in a perceptive, almost eerie way. She had a talent for picking up on what the others missed. Cold spots, pressure changes, feelings of dread. Viewers often commented that she reacted before the camera caught anything strange. She didn't like to be touched, and in certain locations, she wouldn't speak at all. And then there was Noah, the cameraman, always watching, never in the frame. He was quiet, not shy, but silent like a shadow. Noah saw things through the lens that others didn't, and while he rarely gave his opinion, his footage always carried the story. He was the one holding the camera when they walked into Black Hollow, and the only reason we know what happened next. The van, a matte black Dodge with their logo painted on the side, pulled off the gravel road just before sunset. They parked it half a mile from the asylum, hidden behind a wall of overgrown trees. You can hear the leaves crunch under their boots as they step out, each wearing their signature dark jackets, each carrying a backpack filled with gear. The camera rolls as Tyler speaks to their audience. All right, guys, this is it. Black Hollow Asylum. We're the first to spend 2 full nights inside. No contact and no exit. We're locking ourselves in. If we don't come out. Lena interrupts, laughing nervously. Don't say that. Not funny. They pull out their equipment. EMF readers, EVP recorders, thermal cameras, night vision lenses, and a portable solar charger. Derek checks his boom mic. Sasha pulls her hood tighter, already fidgeting with the silver rings she always wears when filming. Noah doesn't say a word. He pans the camera slowly across the tree line, then up toward the asylum just barely visible through the branches. The sky is already turning a bruised blue. At 6:57 p.m., Lena sets her watch. They place their phones in a sealed case and lock it inside the van. The keys go in Tyler's backpack. Then one by one they cross the threshold. Noah captures their silhouettes entering the main gate, framed by rusted iron and years of ivy strangling the brick. The entrance to the asylum yawns open like a mouth that hasn't eaten in decades. The van, their phones, their lives all left behind on the other side of the woods. They walked into the asylum just after 7 p.m. The door creaked shut behind them, and they would never walk out again. The first hour of footage was, by all appearances, typical, just what Spooklight fans had come to expect. Nervous laughter echoed through the empty halls. Handheld cameras shook as doors creaked open, and every sudden noise was met with a forced joke or exaggerated jump. They began in the intake ward, a wide, tiled space now overtaken by rot. Mold bloomed across checkered floors like bruises, and faded patient records were scattered across the ground. The ink on many had bled into the fibers, but one caught Tyler's attention. He read aloud for the camera, noting a subject who claimed to hear humming in the ceiling. He flashed a grin, gave a theatrical shiver, and moved on, as if saying the words aloud might summon something. As they pushed deeper into the east wing, the structure became more unstable. The walls buckled inward, graffiti stretched across crumbling plaster, some of it crude and meaningless, some oddly precise. One message had been scrawled over and over again across multiple door frames. "We are still here." Another, more cryptic, read, "He walks between the rooms." Noah's camera followed everything in silence, gliding slowly across doorways and broken window panes, pausing longer than usual at darkened corners. Behind him, Sasha rubbed her arms, her unease barely concealed. She murmured that the place didn't feel right, that it felt watched. The others didn't respond. Maybe they didn't hear her. Or maybe they were trying not to. Then, at exactly 8:43 p.m., the audio picked up something beneath the static. A whisper, soft, nearly imperceptible but undeniably real. One word, spoken in a voice no one recognized. Stay. Sasha came to a full stop. Her body stiffened as she stared into the doorway of a patient room, her voice slightly higher now as she asked if anyone else had heard it. Derek brushed it off, attributing the noise to the wind, but even he seemed uneasy. After all, there had been no wind since they'd entered, and yet, something had spoken. The group pressed on, but a change had occurred, subtle but unmistakable. The lights on their gear, once steady, began to flicker and sync. Lena checked the battery levels with a furrowed brow. They'd all been fully charged just over an hour ago, yet some were already dipping toward empty. The air grew heavy, then cold. So cold that frost began to creep onto the edges of the camera lens, the sharpness of the breath leaving their mouths now visible in the beam of their flashlights. The temperature had dropped from 7.2 Fahrenheit to 5.8 Fahrenheit in minutes. No explanation, no draft, just the crushing silence of a place that seemed to be shifting around them. Lena was the first to notice the scratches on the wall, deep, vertical gashes along the plaster of room 11. They were too sharp, too fresh. Not like damage left by time or decay. These were deliberate, like claw marks, like desperation. She mentioned that they hadn't appeared in any of the archive photos or previous videos she'd studied. Either someone had been there recently, or something had changed. The crew moved into a larger treatment room, a space that once might have held exercise equipment or therapy sessions. Now it was reduced to dust and shadows. Mirrors lined the back wall, warped and cracked. At the center stood a metal gurney, rusted, its leather restraints frayed and curled. It didn't just look abandoned, it looked expectant. Tyler approached it, brushing off layers of cobwebs, and remarked that it must have been used for shock therapy. He gestured around theatrically, claiming the air still carried the scent of copper. But what hung in the room wasn't the sterile tang of metal. It was something denser, heavier, something that reminded them of blood. Sasha turned away, her expression grim. She didn't say anything this time. She didn't need to. Noah's camera moved with precision now, scanning corners, catching reflections in the mirrors, dwelling a second too long on the ceiling where the water stains resembled outstretched hands. He remained quiet, focused until finally, Tyler suggested they press deeper into the asylum. He wanted to find Ward C, the legendary underground wing Lena had discovered on a forgotten blueprint. It was supposedly sealed in 1965. No stairs, no clear entrance. Just a lift shaft and whispers in online forums. A place not marked on any modern plans. But they wouldn't make it that far. At 10:02 p.m., something changed again. Through the lens of Noah's thermal scope just past the archway leading into the hallway adjacent to the treatment wing, the silhouette appeared. No movement. No sound. Just a shape. A human figure, standing perfectly still at the far end of the hall, too tall, featureless, unmoving, watching. No one noticed at first, not until Sasha, reviewing the feed, went pale. She pointed, asked who that was. Tyler turned with his flashlight, but the hallway was empty. Dust drifted through the beam like snow. Silence followed. Noah replayed the clip. The silhouette was still there. But when they looked back again, it was gone. The shift in tone was immediate. The jokes stopped. The laughter disappeared. And for the first time since they'd arrived, the crew understood. They were not alone. Something else was in the building. And it had been watching them from the start. By midnight, the group's confidence had started to crack. What began as a ghost hunt was slowly becoming a waking nightmare, not because of what they saw, but because of what they couldn't escape. They decided it was time to regroup at the entrance and recharge their batteries, both literal and mental. The footage shows them leaving the east hallway, turning back the way they came, following Lena's digital map and Tyler's memory of the layout. But when they opened the next door expecting to enter the main corridor, they stepped into the treatment wing. Again, the same gurney, the same blood-tinged air, the same mirror, cracked down the middle like a lightning bolt frozen in time. "We were just in the West Wing," Derek said, checking his gear, a thin thread of annoyance creeping into his voice. "I swear to God." "This isn't right," Lena whispered on camera, her voice trembling slightly. She flipped through the asylum's original blueprints on her tablet. They showed a direct path from the East Wing to the front entrance. No loops, no circles, no dead ends. But that's not what they experienced. They tried again, retracing their steps with surgical precision. Left turn, stairwell, hallway, exit. But the same result. They emerged once more into the treatment wing. Every time. "Is it us?" Sasha asked quietly. "Are we disoriented, confused, or—" Noah panned slowly across the corridor as she trailed off. The lens captures their growing fear, the way Tyler's hand twitches at his side. How Lena stops checking the map and simply stares at the walls, blinking as if trying to wake up. Then they tried a new tactic, splitting into two groups. Tyler and Sasha took one hallway. Lena, Derek, and Noah took another. They agreed to meet in 5 minutes back by the nurse's station. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. When both groups returned, they hadn't seen each other. They hadn't left the floor. They had both ended up in the treatment wing. Again, Sasha's voice was shaky now. "I passed this gurney 3 times. I know it. I remember that crack in the floor tile." She pointed to a jagged fissure that split the tile beside the gurney, shaped like a crooked Y. "We're being pulled back here. It's like the building is folding in on itself." Lena muttered, staring up at the flickering ceiling lights. "Or like it wants us here." By 12:50 a.m., panic had begun to surface. It wasn't just fear of ghosts. It was the terror of being lost somewhere that wasn't supposed to exist, a place that didn't obey the laws of time, or space, or sanity. Tyler, who had always been the group's emotional anchor, started pacing. He was visibly sweating, his usual energy now worn thin and erratic. He held the flashlight like a weapon, breathing in through his nose and out through his teeth. At 1 a.m., the camera catches him sitting on the edge of the gurney, his shoulders hunched, eyes darting toward the door. He looks directly into the lens. His voice is low. "Raw. If you find this footage, something is in here with us. I don't think it's a ghost." Then silence. For a full 37 seconds, no one speaks. You can hear the creaking of the old building. You can hear Sasha breathing unevenly. You can hear a soft tapping, like fingertips on metal. But no one is moving. They are afraid to speak. Afraid that whatever is listening might answer back. And it would. The final stretch of the recovered footage runs just under 2 hours. It's nearly silent. No narration, no commentary. Only the quiet hum of malfunctioning audio and the low creak of a dying building settling into its own decay. The camera had been placed on a tripod. Noah's, the one later recovered by police. It was pointed down a long, narrow hallway. The kind of hallway that seems too long, too still, as if it's waiting for something to walk through it. At first, there's nothing. Then, in the distance, movement. Subtle, unnatural. A shape steps into frame at the far edge of the hallway. It doesn't charge, doesn't creep. It simply paces, left to right, then disappears, then returns. Each time it moves, it comes one step closer, but never directly forward, always sideways, always watching. The team had retreated into a small break room near the nurse's station. The footage occasionally cuts to handheld clips as they regroup, whispering, not wanting to speak too loudly anymore. Tyler's voice is hoarse, cracked. Lena's hands are visibly shaking as she flips through her notes. "There's a back exit by the laundry chute," she whispers. and another stairwell that leads to the loading dock. If we split up, we can cover both. Sasha shakes her head. No, no more splitting up. We're being moved, herded. But the decision had already been made. Tyler, Lena, and Noah would head toward the nurse's station and attempt to reach the emergency exit near the old ambulance bay. Derek and Sasha would make for the stairwell at the end of the west wing. They sync their watches, agree to meet in 20 minutes. No one says it aloud, but every face shows it. They aren't confident they'll see each other again. Back on the tripod footage, the hallway remains empty. Until Lena appears. She walks through slowly, glancing behind her. She moves out of frame toward the nurse's station. 10 seconds pass. Then something strange. She doesn't come back. There's no scream, no thud, not even a shadow. She simply vanishes. Next comes Derek. He's not far behind. He walks fast, almost jogs passing through the frame, eyes wide. He holds the flashlight close to his chest, lips moving like he's talking to himself, reassuring himself. 30 seconds later, silence. Then something falls, off frame, maybe metal. Maybe a door handle. We'll never know. Derek never returns. Then Sasha, alone. She walks through the hallway with her arms wrapped around herself. Her silver ring, the one she always wears during investigations, is gone. She stops midway through the hall, looks directly at the camera, just for a moment, like she knows someone's watching, like she's trying to say goodbye without saying anything at all. She mouths something, one word, slow, deliberate. Run. Then she disappears into the dark. The sound cuts out entirely. Only one person is left, Noah. The lens shakes slightly now, it's back in his hands. You can hear his breath, shallow and fast. His boots crunch on glass as he walks the corridor they've already walked a dozen times tonight. He isn't talking, he isn't searching, he's running. And then it happens. A sound. Low, rhythmic, dragging. Not footsteps, not breathing. Metal on tile, like a chain being pulled slowly across the floor. Noah stops. He turns. And for the first time we see it. At the far end of the hallway stands a man. Not a ghost. Not a shadow. A man, dressed in a long white coat, face hidden behind a rotted restraint mask, the kind used in asylums decades ago to prevent biting, leather cracked, straps worn thin. His hands are gloved, stained brown red, the color of blood dried long ago. He doesn't speak, he doesn't rush. He walks, slowly, deliberately, toward the lens, toward us. Noah backs away. The frame becomes unstable. The light flickers as the camera jerks. And then it falls. The final image is the floor. Scuffed tile, cracks filled with dust. The camera rests sideways. No one picks it up, but it keeps recording. For 38 hours it records. No movement, no sound. Just the long, still eye of a camera left behind in a place that doesn't let people leave. At some point, the light fades. The battery dies, and the footage ends. But the story doesn't. By the time the police arrived, 3 days had passed since the Spooklight crew entered Black Hollow. The call had come from Lena's brother, after all 5 team members failed to return texts or check in for their scheduled upload. The search began at dawn. The van was found first, parked exactly where they'd left it, just beyond the tree line. Nothing seemed out of place. The tires were intact, the doors were unlocked. Inside the glove box were 5 phones, sealed in a waterproof case, a laptop untouched. The van smelled faintly of stale coffee and old dust, as if time had simply stopped. But there was no sign of the team. Inside Black Hollow, the building was eerily quiet, colder than expected for early October. The search team consisted of local officers and 2 firefighters equipped for urban rescue. They moved through the east wing cautiously, checking room by room. It wasn't until they reached the treatment wing that they found something. Not a person. Not a body. A camera, resting on its side beneath a rusted bench. covered in dust and scratches, but still intact. Noah's camera. They stopped everything. The team extracted the device carefully and sealed it for forensic analysis. The footage, what you've just heard, would later be examined frame by both state and federal analysts. But at the time, all they had was a sinking feeling, because the camera wasn't the only thing they found. In the basement, near what was believed to be the old maintenance tunnels, a searcher noticed an irregular echo in one section of wall, a hollow resonance when knocked. Behind a corroded metal shelf, there was a panel, roughly welded in place. They pried it open with crowbars. Behind it was a narrow passage, just tall enough to walk through, just wide enough to make you feel claustrophobic after 5 steps. It led to a small, windowless room, barely 10 feet wide. Inside a surgical table, stainless steel, no rust, clean, spotless. In fact, too clean for a building that had been abandoned for nearly 50 years. Next to it, an old metal cabinet filled with tools, forceps, sutures, syringes, all dated but meticulously arranged. There was no dust on the instruments. Whoever had been in this room had been here recently, but it was the footprints that chilled the search team most. Dozens of them, layered over each other, some boot prints, some barefoot. One set, unusually large, seemed to circle the table over and over again. Crime scene technicians were called in. Every surface was swabbed, every object photographed. Fingerprints were lifted from the table's edges and the surgical tray. None matched anyone in the national database. Swabs from the gloves hanging on a peg by the wall-dried blood. Human. But the DNA profile came back inconclusive. Partial matches, degraded sequences, no one on record. As if whoever bled on those gloves wasn't meant to be found. There were no bodies in the room, no personal items, no sign of the 5 friends. What the footage didn't show, what no one could explain, was where they had gone. There were no drag marks, no blood trails, no screams caught on outside audio devices, just shadows and silence. Investigators returned to the asylum 3 more times in the weeks that followed. They brought dogs, drones, heat sensors. They mapped every hallway and crawl space, and every time they came up empty, Black Hollow held onto its secrets. All that remained was a single camera and a hallway, and the knowledge that somewhere inside that building, someone was still watching. The story of the Spooklight crew didn't end with the footage. It only began there. Even now, years later, investigators, internet sleuths, and horror forums still ask the same question. What really happened inside Black Hollow? Was the team taken by someone living in the asylum, a forgotten patient lost in madness and time? Or could it have been a squatter? Someone who made the ruins of Black Hollow their home, carving out a world beneath the surface, hidden rooms, sealed corridors, surgical routines no one would ever interrupt. But some have another theory, that it was all staged, a viral marketing stunt, a Blair Witch-style fabrication gone too far, the camera placement, the eerie pacing, the perfect silence. But if it was fake, why did the crew never claim credit? Why did their bank accounts remain untouched, their phones untouched, their social media silent? Why did none of them reappear? No ticket purchases, no passport stamps, no digital footprints at all. It's as if they were erased. Their families live in limbo, birthdays missed, holidays passed in silence, parents aging without answers, siblings leaving messages that go forever unread. One mother still keeps her daughter's room exactly as it was. Another leaves a porch light on every night. Just in case, all that remains is the video. The footage that spread like wildfire across the internet, debunked, reanalyzed, broken down frame by frame, thousands of hours spent searching for cuts, glitches, signs of forgery. Some claim to hear new whispers in the audio. Others say the shadows change shape when no one is moving. But no one can explain the final frame. Near the very end of the tape, as the battery dies, there's a moment just a few seconds where the lens is lifted off the floor. By a gloved hand, the same gloves seen on the figure in the hallway. The camera is tilted downward, slowly, deliberately, and it focuses on the tile, on the floor, where something has been scratched into the surface, deep, deliberate etchings that must have taken hours. 5 names: Tyler, Lena, Derek, Sasha, Noah. Each name scratched out, one by one, like a checklist, like a ledger. Except for the last one. The last name doesn't belong to the crew. It's a single word. Not scratched out. Not finished. You. As if someone or something was still waiting for the next visitor. Still watching. Still listening. The screen fades to black, and with it, every last trace of the Spooklight crew disappears into the walls of Black Hollow. Some places were never meant to be entered. Some questions were never meant to be answered. And some cameras should never be found.